Hi there, my name is Porsha and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to start a series on my channel where I look more in depth at movies that I grew up watching and movies I love and talking about what I learned from those movies. If you like talking about movies and overanalyzing things to the point of there is no point, please subscribe. So The Craft came out in 1996. It starred Fairuza Balk, Tunney, and Neve Campbell from a little movie series you might know as Scream. And just so that we're all aware, there are spoilers. This movie came out literally over 20 years ago. So go watch it, come back, and then let's overanalyze it. We meet these three witches. Right off the bat, I just had a bad feeling. If you're watching a movie about witches, something bad is probably going to happen. But like the first thing I noticed is I'm like, this girl Nancy is, one, she is so funny. Like she has all the best one-liners. She's kind of like if Daria came to life and was a witch. That's kind of how I like to think of her. And she's so great, but she's also terrifying. Like she's also kind of emotionless. By the end of the movie is like for sure, but at the beginning of the movie you're just like, well, I don't know, she could just be, you know, an angsty teen. Then there's Bonnie, who's kind of quiet. I feel like I wanted to know a lot more about her story, which we never really delve into that deeply. All we know is that she's damaged and people make fun of her because she was in a fire when she was a kid, which is also fucking terrible. Like kids suck. Kids suck. It's kind of crazy. And then there's Rochelle. And she doesn't really, she has like a struggle, like you could tell that like she doesn't get along super well, but I don't know if it's like a school-wide thing or if it's just she has this one harasser. She gets targeted for being black. The problems that they're going through are really relatable, and even today I would say that this movie holds up really well. There are scenes that like make me even super uncomfortable, like the scene in the bathroom.
Oh God, look, there is a pubic hair in my brush. Wait. That's just one of Rochelle's little nappy hairs.
Why are you doing this to me, Laura? Do you think you're funny?
You really want to know why? Because I don't like Negroids.
Like that makes my skin crawl. Like I think from the jump of the movie, we're already kind of like, well, fuck all these like rich asshole kids. Like I'm on the side with the witches. Like they obviously have a reason to be upset. And then they get introduced to Sarah, who just moved to San Francisco with her dad. So the first person to see her is Bonnie, and they're sitting in a classroom, and Sarah is like, I don't know, she thinks that like no one in the classroom is looking at her. Sitting at her desk, minding her own business, playing with her pencil. And then she sets the pencil down on the pointed edge and it starts like spinning with her mind. She lets go. And Neve Campbell's character catches this. And as soon as she notices, Sarah knocks over the pencil, but it puts in motion what the next steps are. Bonnie goes and tells Nancy and Rochelle, I think I found our fourth. And it's kind of interesting because I've always heard like in occult type things, it's like the number 3 tends to be the most prevalent. We all know that, it's like the sign of the devil or whatever. But what I think is interesting about this is that they kind of changed that and they needed 4 people to call for the 4 corners of the earth or whatever, which actually makes a lot more sense. I'm not a witch, but it makes more sense to me. So all the girls meet and you can tell Nancy's like super on edge about this. She's like, I don't know about this girl.
Nancy, we need her.
Like a hole in the head.
I'm not gonna just immediately take her into our inner circle. It's not until after she goes on that failed date with, what's his face from Scream? Insert picture here. That she kind of is like, oh, okay, like now you know what we've been through. He like, put rumors all around the school, just like he did with Sarah after their failed date, and that's ultimately what bonds them together. And then they become the 4 witches.
Well, then that's it, you guys. Sarah's the 4th. North, south, east, and west. We can make things happen. I mean, this is it. This is real.
Which is when all the fun stuff happens, to be totally honest. Like, one of my favorite scenes is
Less a feather, stiff as a board. Less a feather, stiff as a board. Less a feather, stiff as a board.
I love that scene. I've actually never done that with a group of friends before, but I've always wanted to be at a sleepover and do it because it's really like a bonding moment. Like, I feel like they do a very good job of making all these girls seem like genuinely real friends. I love also that scene when they get on the bus and Nancy says that great one-liner.
Girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
It's so great. I need that all on a t-shirt immediately. I love that saying. After they become the four, they do that little bonding thing. They I think they all cut like their palms or something and become like blood sisters, and that's pretty much the beginning of the end. And I think that's always how it is with these kind of movies. It's like something big like that happens and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until it's out of control. Nancy buying a new apartment for her mom. She kills her like stepdad or whatever. I don't think the money they would have gotten from his death would have paid for said apartment. Like, how were they gonna continue to make enough money to sustain this residence? That's just me overanalyzing the situation. Bonnie's able to get rid of all her scarring on her back, so she feels like beautiful and sexy, and now she's dressing better. She's not afraid to be a little sassy. And Rochelle, I think, has the most underwhelming glow up because she's just like, she just goes back at her bully who like totally deserved to have all of her hair fall out of her head, in my opinion. So it's hard for me to really be like, yeah, she's the evil one. So we know it's kind of the beginning of the end, I think, when we go to that witch's shop. The cashier is like,
well, then understand this. Whatever you send out, you get back ×3.
That definitely sets the tone for how the movie ends. So we see that Nancy's kind of gone greedy with power, especially after they had called on the Four Corners when they're on that beach and all the whales are sacrificed for them. That moment is where I was like, she's like, Nancy has cracked. She's gone over the edge and there's just no turning back after that. We go to the party and she turns her whole self into Sarah and then like fucks with what's his name from Scream again. Scene at the house when all the bugs are everywhere, when Sarah wants to get out, she tries to bind Nancy and it doesn't work. Oh, that part is so cool, but terrifying. Like, it's literally my worst nightmare. So ultimately what we see at the end is that Sarah finally kind of takes control of the situation. Like, she had been studying this before she even met them. And I think while they were knowledgeable, like the three of them were knowledgeable about witchcraft, I think Nancy was the ultimate ringleader and would be the one that would say, okay, we need to do this way, we need to do that way. Whereas Sarah already had that knowledge, and not to mention she built up this kind of relationship with the owner of that bookstore, so maybe she got some information from her as well. But ultimately, she does end up being able to bind Nancy, breaking them from being like the gods that they were. And then everyone just kind of gets a taste of their own medicine. What did we learn, you might be asking? And to be honest, I don't know. Well, I don't think that it necessarily matters whether or not the movie has a great moral message at the end of it. But I think what you're supposed to take from it is that you shouldn't let other people have the authority to control your life. You have to be responsible for your own actions and your own future. Regardless of all the bad stuff that's going on, you can't be worse to like battle that out. That's kind of what I got from it. I think if you're just watching this to watch it, I don't think there's necessarily a lesson to be learned here. I think it's just a fun movie and there's some really great 90s fashion in it. And can we just take a second to say that their freaking uniforms are awesome. Like, usually school uniforms suck, but I don't know what kind of rule they have at this Catholic school where like you have to wear the uniform but like make it your own or something. I don't know. The fashion in this movie is freaking great. A couple little trivia notes. So another thing that I thought was super interesting is that Fairuza Balk actually owns a witchcraft store, and she actually was a practicing Wiccan. So they actually went to her with a lot of questions about how things should be filmed or said, or like where they should get their information from. So like a lot of what you're seeing on the screen is like taken from actual like Wiccan history or Wiccan, the Wiccan faith, which I thought was very interesting and cool. I don't know if she still owns that shop, but it's something she's talked about in a lot of like interviews about the movie and stuff, which is oh, very interesting to me. There were over 3,000 snakes used for the scenes with Sarah in her house when Nancy's trying to get at her. I would arguably say Neve Campbell is probably the biggest star that came out of this movie. Party of Five had already been on, but Scream hadn't come out yet, so this was Neve Campbell's first big feature film, which is also really cool. Last piece of trivia, which I thought was really interesting, is that the ritual scene with all the whales that end up short on the beach, they actually said that they had a lot of technical difficulties shooting that film. That was unexplained, which I think is interesting because in almost every movie that deals with the supernatural, I would say those cases, they talk about something weird happening on set. I think the most notable one is Poltergeist. Everyone has said that there are many things that happened on that set that were unexplainable. And yeah, you could mark it all up to like, oh, this is just to create hype around the movie, but like a lot of those stories didn't even come out till way after the fact. And I think this is one of those things too, where I don't think that they tried to use that as a selling point to get people to see the movie. I think it was just information that people asked about later that later on came out, which makes it even more spooky. I also don't doubt that witchcraft really exists. So I think to some degree, this could also be a cautionary tale to be like, research what you're getting into. You have to know that everything you do has a reaction. That's definitely one point that this movie makes. Whatever you put into the world, you're gonna get back ×3. So you better put some good shit into the world. So that's it. That's what I learned from watching The Craft. I'd really like to know what you think of this movie, so please let me know in the comments down below. And again, if you like this video and you want to talk more about movies with me, please hit that like button so that I know. And you can hit the bell notification to be notified every time I make a video. I'm new to this. I don't know really what I'm doing. I don't know when I'm gonna upload. So it'd be really awesome if you hit the subscribe and hit that bell and you follow me on my little YouTube journey. Thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again. Toodles.